Expat Lifestyle with Bads, and welcome back everyone. Today's episode is all about power, art and legacy. We're following the Medici family, the dynasty that turned Florence into the heart of the Renaissance. Everywhere you go here, you'll see their fingerprints, their DNA, from their palaces, cathedrals to wonderful masterpieces of art. And hang around till the end, because I've got a special little twist to conclude this episode, a little bit different to what I normally do. Okay, so let's hit the streets of Florence and unpack the story of the Medici, the family that changed the history of Florence. In 1397, Giovanni Medici founded the family bank, and it very quickly became the most powerful bank in all of Europe. Medici financed popes and monarchs and merchants from all over Europe. By today's standards, the Medici, it's estimated, were worth $500 billion, and that puts them as one of the richest families ever in the world. Wow. So in this episode, I'm going to show you all of those iconic locations, buildings, pieces of work that Medici had a hand in, and perhaps some lesser known locations that you might not be aware of. And of course, if you enjoy this episode, give me a thumbs up, share with a friend, and subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's go check out the Medicis and the impact they had on this wonderful city of Florence. So from the majestic beauty of the Duomo, the spiritual centre of Florence, it's just a very short walk to San Lorenzo, where we'll find the Medici's first palace, their family church and family mausoleum known as the Medici Chapel. Andiamo, let's go. Now as you're walking along, always try and look up and you'll see this particular family crest quite often, the Medici family crest, and it's signified by the 6 round balls. Now historians, some claim they're coins, others, because Medici means doctor, others will say they're pills. Either way, you'll see this emblem throughout Florence and much of Italy as well. So behind me is the Basilica of San Lorenzo, the family church of the Medici. It doesn't look like much on the outside, does it? But inside, it's lovely. So I'm in the San Lorenzo precinct, and as I turn around, you'll see the palace walls, the first palace of the Medici. They moved in there in 1460, but within 80 years, they'd moved to a new palace, Palazzo Vecchio, and that's a palace worth visiting. I do want to show you, however, and I do recommend you visit the Medici Chapel, which is not too far away at all. Okay, let's go check it out. Now, on our way to the Medici Chapel, we passed by the San Lorenzo leather markets. So if you're interested in getting some genuine fake leather items, that's your point of call. Oh, look, a recommendation, not too far down that market laneway, you will find the Central Market, Mercato Centrale. And on the second level, they've got quite a good array of meals you can purchase up until about midnight. So that's not a bad little tip. So the building directly behind me are the Medici Chapels. Now, if your time is short, you've only got an hour, but you want to experience what it's like to perhaps be a Medici prince or princess for just 1 hour, I do recommend you go in and check it out. Don't judge a book by its cover. It's quite modest on the outside, isn't it? But once you get inside, you'll realise the wealth that the Medici family had. And as I said earlier, estimated the 5th wealthiest family ever. Wow. So you go into the family crypt and you've got your lesser known Medici wives and relatives within. And then upstairs, the Prince's Chapel, and it's a oh my God moment. But don't miss the new sacristy and in there you'll see some fantastic sculptures from one of their artists. Guess who? Michelangelo. €9 entry. This is a strong recommendation for me, and we can see the doorway. There's very few people here. It's Sunday afternoon. Please do yourself a favour, visit the Medici Chapel. So this square, the Piazza della Signoria, it's a beautiful piazza to visit, and the influence of the Medici is everywhere. And the Medici moved in 1540. Their second palace, the old palace, Palazzo Vecchio, was their home for quite some time. This particular piazza is also a place of executions and torture, historical pageantry, which is wonderful to see. And if you time it right, you might experience that yourself here in this piazza. Is the Palazzo Vecchio worth visiting? For sure. Now, a museum ticket to go within and check out the Medici apartments will set you back €12.50. But I suggest you pay €5 more, €17.50 will allow you to see the museum inside, including the Great Hall of 500, and climb the tower, because it's not a real popular tower to climb, this one, but I can guarantee you will get sensational views of the Duomo, which is not too far away. So it's certainly a recommendation. Go and visit the old palace, the Palazzo Vecchio, $12.50 to visit the Medici apartments. Pay $5 more and you can climb that tower. And right next door to the old palace is the Uffizi Gallery. Uffizi in Italian means offices. And so this was a building originally to be the administration offices for the Medici. But very soon, this wonderful building became an art gallery, and it's one of the premier art galleries in the world. Now, if you're a lover of art, the Uffizi, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? In you go. €13, it's a pretty good deal. Now, with children, it's a pretty tough ask. It's an immense gallery, and they're going to struggle to get through the time that you need, and we're talking a few hours here. An alternative is perhaps to visit the Pitti Palace, which I'll show you a little bit later on. It's on a much smaller scale, but I would think a bit more engaging if you're travelling with children. Okay, time for a little break from the Medici in Florence, and here I am down under. Now, those of you who watched my last episode, Florence Lighting Up for Christmas, you will have heard me towards the end mention about coming back down under for Christmas. Well, here I am at Point Lonsdale. It's about 100 kilometres south of Melbourne. It's really a very quiet seaside town at the end of the road, because you can go no further. The next state over the Bass Strait there is Tasmania. And behind me, a very treacherous waterway called the Rip. It's about 3.5, 4 kilometres in width, the entrance. So pilot ships will go out and meet the larger container ships and so on to get them into Port Phillip Bay. Consequently, 100 years ago, the lighthouse, which is just above me, was built, and it's actually still operating. For a holiday, Point Lonsdale could be your cup of tea. There's a couple of cafes, lots of dog walking. There's a back beach, surf beach, a front beach here, and you've got the Rip just out behind me. Now, being on the southern coast, you do get quite changeable weather. You know, for instance, yesterday, 35 degrees Celsius, 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Today, much, much colder. And you know what? On Christmas Eve, when we arrived in the morning, the temperature feels like 6 degrees Celsius. You know, what have we got there? 48 degrees Fahrenheit. We had the log fire going, would you believe? And that's pretty typical for a Melbourne summer. You do get used to the weather changing quite dramatically. So on colder days, look, there's lots of things to do. You know, you've got your walking and so on. The dogs love the walk along the beach too. But being on the Bellarine Peninsula, you've also got some lovely boutique wineries that you can visit. And myself and family, we went to the Jack Rabbit Winery, and I tell you what, I enjoyed one of the best meals I've had in a long, long time. Port Arlington mussels. And I'll show you the highlights package. I did sample some of the local brew, the local vino as well. To be honest, I didn't really find something that hit the spot there. Nevertheless, it was a lovely afternoon with a beautiful outlook looking across Port Phillip Bay back to Melbourne. Hey, it was a great afternoon. And look, I'll put all the details about Point Lonsdale, its location to Melbourne, and where we've stayed actually in the video description below. Now, let's get back to Florence and the Medici family. And welcome back to Florence, and of course, a Happy New Year to you all as well. It was a great time back in Melbourne, and by the way, yesterday, down under in Melbourne, 42 degrees, wildfires happening, it's crazy. Whilst back here in Florence, I've experienced some of the coldest weather I've felt here in the 3.5 years that I've lived in Florence. And snow, have a look at this footage, just brilliant, love the snow. I'm just heading up to the Piazza of Santa Trinita. It's one of my favourite piazzas, it's just lovely. Currently, I'm in the Piazza of Santa Trinita, and behind me is the Peace Column, which has direct links to the Medici family. So the Piazza of Santa Trinita at the top of Via de Tornabuoni is a lovely piazza to visit. Totally free, obviously, but it has a very strong influence, historic influence, with connections to the Medici family, as this column was gifted to them by Pope Pius IV from Rome back in the mid-1500s. So I encourage you, if you're in Florence, to find this piazza and just enjoy being here. The buildings surrounding it are just magnificent. Now, another unique feature directly linked to the Medici and Cosimo actually are the wine windows. They were also introduced in the mid-1500s, really to allow the Medici to gain some tax. The nobility were allowed to sell their wine from the windows to the lower class people, I guess we say the peasants, therefore keeping that distance between them and the peasants. And you know what? In times of plague, they were also quite beneficial. We all remember the social distancing of COVID. Well, this was a form of social distancing back in the mid-1500s. Now, there are about 150 wine windows that you can find throughout Florence, and there are several that are still operating or have recently been opened to operate, and they're real tourist attractions. I'm going to show you an operating wine window now in Via Belladonna, and I encourage you, if you're in Florence, to visit this one. Okay, so this particular wine window, it's set up for the tourist, Instagrammable photos, and there we have it there. Knock on the window, and you can order a vino or spritz, it's up to you. Lovely little restaurant, that one, by the way, too. Osteria Belladonna. I've been there a couple of times. Now, the Vasari Corridor has only recently been reopened. So I'm walking underneath Vasari Corridor right now, and pretty soon it's going to take a sharp turn to the left and go over the Ponte Vecchio, the old bridge. So the Vasari Corridor, a private corridor for the Medici, was built basically to allow them privacy in their walk from the old palace up to the new residence at the Pitti Palace, away from the medieval life and smells below them. Small group tours are available to walk the Vasari Corridor, and I did have the opportunity just under a year ago to do that, and look, it was wonderful. It's about €35, so it's one of the more expensive tours that you would undertake here in Florence. So it's something to really enjoy and look at, and if it's something you really want to do, you can walk through it too. For me, I thought it was great. So here we are on the Ponte Vecchio, the old bridge, the oldest bridge in Florence and the only bridge to survive World War II. Up until 1593, this bridge held butchers, fishmongers and tannery shops. So you can imagine, it was pretty filthy. The smells would have been ordinary too. So at that point, Ferdinand Medici had the place cleaned up, and he introduced the gold and jewellery shops, which are still present today. So as you can see, a walk over the Ponte Vecchio is a very enjoyable experience, and an experience that everyone who visits Florence undertake. Won't cost you a cent, and you're going to do it for sure if you visit Florence. Now, all of the rich nobility, not only in Florence, but all of the city-states of Italy, were patrons, supporters of the arts, artists, scientists, writers, and so on. So it's no surprise then, is it, that if you're a talented person and you're being supported financially, you can produce great works of art like David here with Michelangelo. Okay, so as we leave, I call him Fake David behind me. Do you need to see the real deal over at the Accademia? €13 will get you a ticket to see the authentic David, and I tell you what, I think it's worth seeing. It really is. It's a museum, the Accademia, where David is the centrepiece, so you can get in and out quite quickly. It's not open on a Monday. Now on that, when you're purchasing tickets, I suggest you pre-purchase before you get here. Try and get beat the line tickets so you know when to turn up and you're not wasting too much time in a line. That way you won't be disappointed. Oh, the other thing, with your planning of the itinerary, you have your dates. So if you're arriving in Florence on the first Sunday of the month, all of the museums have a free entry. Now, everyone else in the world knows that too. So Uffizi, for example, I've seen some very, very long lines there. But it's something to consider, isn't it? Pick out the museum, you get there nice and early, and look, you'll save a few euro. So as I leave the Ponte Vecchio, it's just a short walk up to the Pitti Palace. Now, the third residence of the Medici, and a ticket entry is well worth it, another recommendation of mine. So a visit to the Pitti Palace could be a better option for you, rather than perhaps visiting the Uffizi Gallery, which can be quite overwhelming, and you do need 3 or 4 hours there. Here, you can see we've got quite a few attractions. The Treasure of the Grand Dukes, we've got 2 galleries, the apartments of the Medici, as well as a fashion museum. So there's a lot to see. €16 is the entry price. Now, spend a little bit more, €23, and you get the opportunity to visit the Boboli Gardens. And with that ticket, you can also visit the Bardini Gardens, which are a lovely smaller garden that overlooks the Arno River down in San Nicolo. And I know for most people visiting Florence on a 2 or 3 day turnaround, there's so much to fit in, isn't there? So look, I hope this helps you a little bit. All of the sites I've shown you today are heavily influenced by the Medici. They did so much, didn't they? As we leave the Pitti Palace, I just want to share this particular fact with you. Anna Maria Luisa Medici passed away in 1743. She was the last of the Medici, for you see she had no children. Now we're talking about one of the wealthiest families ever, 500 billion. So what happened to all of that wealth? Well, you know what? 2 or 3 years earlier, before she passed away, Anna Maria Luisa had signed the family pact, which gave everything that the Medici had to the city of Florence. What a gesture. What a legacy.
All right, guys, that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with the Medici.
If you loved what you saw, don't forget to give Bads a big thumbs up. Hit that share button to spread the vibes.
And of course, subscribe to Expat Lifestyle.
With Bads, the Medici didn't just build a city, their dynasty created an empire. And what a profound legacy they have left us. Every street, statue and masterpiece still echoes their vision of power and beauty. Thank you for joining me on this stroll through the Medici's Florence. Until next time, ciao.